line, lower classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide, sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care, Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only for they bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids, no one makes countries lie to your face, fight and die, cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line, lower classes, social side, they don't matter, genocide, sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care, see their shit, force a bear, fuck them back, that's only fair, they bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids, no one leaves countries, lie to your face, fight and die, cause God forgives, yeah. Coming back around again.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On, and you're listening on UCY.TV, best little network on the internet. And today is, if I'm not mistaken, September the 29th. And I think the Pope's gone. And that's good, because I'm really getting tired of the Pope. Enough Pope. And today we're going to talk about some other garbage that's going on. Doesn't seem to be any shortage of it. And here where I live in Ontario, not Ontario, California, but Ontario, Canada, which is kind of odd because California, Ontario seem to have teamed up to cut carbon credit deals and all kinds of weird deals and rainbow flag deals and gay pride parade deals and all kinds of deals. Even though the province has no authority whatsoever to be doing international agreements with anybody. But such is the world we live in. Now, our premier, and I won't be too hard on her because I was talking to her office today. I called the premier's office today, and I had a pretty interesting conversation with a couple of gals there. And they kind of, I talk to them every now and again, and as hard as they try, every now and again they spill some very important beans to me, which I thank them for. So it's kind of interesting. But our premier is a lesbian. Now I can't hold that against her, I suppose. You could, but then you would be one of those hate crime people, right? And then to drag your sorry ass up in front of the Human Rights Commission and look out. Look out. They wouldn't take too kindly to you. So it's best not to get in trouble, right? So anyways, here in Ontario, I saw this go by when the Pope was in town, and I thought it was rather fitting, but I was yammering on about the Pope during that week, so I didn't really get to much else. So, but in Ontario, in keeping with the forward-looking movement of our futures and the betterment of all who call planet Earth home, it just seems like a logical next step. And the headline here is no more mothers and fathers. Enough of yous. We've had it. No more mothers and fathers. You've been around long enough now. Just go away. You're not transgendered. And you're not gays and lesbians. And so we're going to get rid of you. There's no more room for you people. You cause us too much trouble. So no more mothers and fathers. Ontario looks at gender-neutral changes to government forms. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Ontario, has become the first province to consider moving all government documents toward gender-neutral language to refer to parents. A motion from a Liberal backbencher to replace references to mothers and fathers on all government forms to parents and guardians received all-party support Thursday afternoon. Now, it would, because in Ontario, at least, if there's a gay pride parade, which we seem to have a hell of a pile of damn things, if you're a politician, you dare not to attend one of these things, well, you could have a short career. Of course you got all-party support, because all parties support the lunacy that's going on. And that lunacy comes out of the United Nations. Now, what's weird about this guy is this MPP, who's a Liberal backbencher, was an NDPer, and everybody, a lot of people are really pushing the NDP, the Orange Wave, who just happens to be members of the Socialist International. He jumped from the NDP over the Ontario Liberals, and there's still some police investigation going into that. Of course, it won't come to nothing. They may hang some lower branch man or woman, or transgendered, or gay, lesbian, or not quite sure kind of person. But the people at the top are not going to take a licking on this. The initiative is non-binding, but cabinet ministers spoke in its favor, and MPP said it's about creating more inclusive. How many times have we heard that? A more inclusive environment in a world where there are many, many, many kinds of families, Some government medical forms already opt for gender-neutral parent or guardian, but not universally. Sudbury MPP Glenn Thibault, who brought the motion forward, that was the guy that jumped parties, said a constituent pointed out the issue. Now, I'm sure a lot of this guy's constituents point out a lot of things to him, like the going through the roof of our hydro bills because of that fraud that was committed by the government, or the amalgamation of our hospitals, or the amalgamation of our territories, or the screw-ups that are going on in the school. There seems to be an awful lot of issues that could be dealt with, but this one in particular caught this guy's ear because a constituent, not a bunch of them with protest signs out in front of his office, just a constituent pointed out the issue on a school form in her area. You see, she's a single mother, and she was perplexed where there were spaces for both a mother and father as opposed to something that better reflects the shape of modern families. Well, either she knew who the father was or she didn't. So she could have put down her name in the mother slot, and could have put, I think it was A Wild Saturday Night in the father's slot, or she could have put down not knowing, or she could have left it blank. But this perplexed her terribly. She didn't know what to do about that father thing there. So for my constituent, it was a reminder that she was a single parent, and that being a single parent makes her, feel different, Thibault said. It's a reminder to single parents, to divorced parents, or queer or transgendered parents that they, and the way they raise their child is not what is considered to be normal. He said adoption records are another example of government document that that relies on binary gender norms. This isn't about banning the words mother and father. It's more like shoving them to the back of the page, if you will. That was mentioned by some members of the press gallery early this afternoon. He said, this is about making Ontario more inclusive. Jeez. You don't have to take off your whatever they call that thing that the women from the Muslim women, Islamic women wear over their faces to get their licenses taken. That's not a problem. We want to be inclusive. We want to bend over. We want all the normal people in the province to just bend over. The Pope was in town last week. You understand the word bend over, don't you? The terminology, just bend over. And a little smile while you bent over wouldn't hurt the situation at all either. But this is about making Ontario more inclusive. The motion is timely. Of course it's timely, given the recent upsurge in awareness of transgender issues. The upsurge, you slam it in every media form that's available. You can't turn on a TV, of which I turned mine off years ago, and I wish the rest of you would throw yours out as well, but that's your choice. But it's slammed at people everywhere and constantly. So it's just this upsurge in awareness, not this constant propaganding we're pounding at. We just like to refer to it as an upsurge in awareness of transgendered issues. Thanks, at least in part, to pop culture. Orange is the New Black and Transparent have brought the issue to the fore on small screens. Now, I don't have a small screen, so I have no clue, thankfully, what Orange is the New Black and Transparent are. I have no clue what that means. But apparently it's part of the upsurge in awareness program that's going on. So those shows or whatever they are have brought the issue to the fore on small screens. And Caitlyn Jenner's coming out earlier this year drew international attention. And don't forget the woman who, the single parent up there in Sudbury who didn't know what to put in father. So we went from there, and now we got an international bit of attention here off of Caitlyn, I don't know who the hell I am, retard Jenner. New Democrat MPP Jennifer French, a former teacher, that's important, a former teacher, lauded the notion, saying families come in all shapes and sizes. And she can say that because as a former teacher, she knows the propaganda that's being shoved down the children's throats, be it climate change or global warming or family size or family planning or whatever it might be. As a former teacher, she's well aware of the curriculum that is being force-fed down these young throats. It isn't the gender of care. It is the nature of it, she said. Her caucus mate, Sherry DeNovo, who has been a leader on transgender rights issues in the Ontario legislature, well, of course, what else would you do in the Ontario legislature, said she plans to bring forward a private member's bill to take the same notion even further. She said the non-binding motion is just a start, but it's time for parental equality. DeNovo said it would be best if all the changes were enshrined in law, as opposed to a non-binding motion. The motion is drafted so the government can make the changes going forward and use up the existing forms, Seibold said, so it wouldn't even cost anything. Ha! You gotta like your government, right? They're concerned about the cost of the government form change. That's brilliant. Not concerned about the cost to the society for all the manufacturing jobs that were sent to China. I don't seem to bother too much. Or the amount of debt this province sees itself in, which you can't get out of. But they this transgendered thing and this form change, they're taking everything into consideration. And I suppose, what can I say negative about it? I can't say anything negative about it, really, because they've checked it all out. And if they work this through, the law through, while they're using up the old forms, when the law comes through, well, shit, when it comes time to print the new forms, piece of cake. We didn't have to throw out any old forms. No waste. How environmentally friendly can you get, right? Anyways, it says, While calling for more inclusive language, the member is calling for words mother and father to be excluded from government forms, Bailey said. If the member was really serious about being inclusive, he would be asking that the words such as parent and guardian be added. I might add a stress on or added to government forms, not that words mother and father be excluded from them. I know everyone here would agree that the words mother and father mean many things to many people, and it shouldn't be excluded from government forms or our day-to-day vocabulary, Bailey said. Well, geez, Now you're not standing up and jumping up and down and going, what are you people, nuts? You just would like the words mother and father to continue to stay there, but add all the rest of this shit. It's mind-boggling. And this all comes out of the United Nations. These are the most satanic, sick suckers that ever been put on this planet. And everything that comes through your local agenda comes straight out of the United Nations or one of their bodies. Now, here's a little story quickly. It's in the same paper, Life, National Post. It says, this is the heading for crying out loud. This is a major newspaper in this country. And as it goes on, everybody in dresses, : why does gender-neutral clothing always mean boy clothes for girls? I'm going to puke before I get through this when I started reading it, but I'm going to go for it because, well, it's in recognition of the Pope being over here in North America. When I was working as an ASL interpreter in high school in rural Nova Scotia, the English teacher announced one day that the class was going to read The Outsiders. The kids groaned as he handed out the battered paperbacks, having found the book dated. When I read it in my own grade 10 English class years earlier, I sympathized with their reactions, but the teacher was determined to secure everyone's enthusiasm for the plight of the greasers. Let's see. So when Hinton wrote the book, he informed us brightly, he was only 16 years old. It seemed bizarre that someone who had likely been teaching this book as long as I'd been alive would get such a major fact wrong, so I stayed after class to clarify. I'm pretty sure that S.E. Hinton is a woman. I hated that a question had snuck into what I had meant to be a declarative statement. Oh, I know, he chuckled, but the boys won't want to read it if they know it was written by a girl. His perspective was clear. Girl stories are for girls, boy stories for everyone. Okay, I don't know where they're going with this thing. I guess it's if they want gender neutral clothing to be both boy and girl clothing, whatever works for you, folks. As long as feminine is treated as a synonym for weak, girls are going to continue to be underestimated, and boys are going to continue to be bullied when they step out of the gender box they've put in. Well, I don't think you're going to get a lot of them stepping out of the so-called gender box if boys are boys and girls are girls, and you don't have your entire school system trying to take them out of this so-called box and put them into a different box, right? Okay, they're taught this garbage from a very young age. The schools are full of pedophiles, okay, and gays. That's how we ripe with this stuff. So that has to. So we need to clear the schools out. We got to get back to. I don't want to call them normal people, but there's way too much emphasis on this gender nonsense. Anyway, so we go from that crazy nonsense of getting rid of the mom and dad to something that I haven't brought up for a long time. I used to shoot back in 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. Me and my wife shot an awful lot of chemtrail videos, or I guess geoengineering chemtrail. We shot a lot of video, and it was rather puzzling because you'd point at the sky and people would look at the ground. It was rather odd. And I do believe a lot of that continues to this day. But this is 2015. I've moved on, and I've since understood that I may have been incorrect in the whole idea of chemtrails or geoengineering. Now, I know there's a lot of people still out there today yammering off about chemtrails and that. But are they really chemtrails? Because I got this story here in the Toronto paper, and the title is David Keith's Climate Solution Genius or Madness? David Keith is a leading figure in the world of geoengineering, manipulating the Earth's atmosphere to counteract global warming. Some think his ideas are crazy, but he argues we'd be crazy to ignore them. So down from Cambridge, Massachusetts, close your eyes and imagine this. You got your eyes closed? Do you? Everybody's got their eyes closed now. Okay, now start imagining this. Imagine this. Airplanes equipped to disperse sulfuric acid are flying in the lower stratosphere. When released, the sulfur combines with water vapor to form minute sulfuric aerosols. Once spread across the globe, the aerosols will reflect roughly 1% of the sunlight back into the space, thus cooling the planet a smidge. Now, can you imagine that? Can you imagine airplanes actually flying around in the sky, spraying stuff? Can you imagine that? That is spooky shit, man. Good thing they haven't done it. But this David Keith, says maybe this is what we're going to have to do. So we might want to listen to this guy. So I know after reading just this much of the story that I know what I was witnessing up to reading this story, because obviously what I thought were chemtrails were actually, in fact, contrails. Right? Only makes sense. I mean, this story was just put out. So this story came out on, September the 27th, the day the Pope took off. So obviously there wasn't any geoengineering prior, and obviously there hasn't been any now because they're discussing it. So you need to just lay back and imagine airplanes flying around spraying stuff. It isn't science fiction what we're talking about. It's David Keith's plan. Keith is a Canadian environmental scientist and one of the world's leading figures in the field of solar geoengineering. Since the 1990s, he has also been one of the very few to study how it could work. A professor at Harvard University, Keith 51 divides his time between the School of Engineering and the Kennedy School of Government. Cool. In addition to teaching and writing, Keith is the best-known advocate for research into geoengineering. Despite death threats and hate mail, whoa, huh? The guy's gotten death threats and hate mail because he's trying to save the planet with geoengineering. I mean, how crude can people really be? And I know it wouldn't have been transgendered people threatening him. Okay? It's those other people. The ones that had mothers and fathers, those kind of people are probably the ones that were threatening him. Despite the death threats and hate mail, he isn't scared to talk about it at symposiums or on the Colbert Report, of who I am no fan of. I'll put that out right now. As far as I'm concerned, the Colbert Report is disinfo in the maximum. A lot of people like this guy. I got no use for him. I did some research on him. That's what I do. I'm a researcher, and I listen closely. And if you want to listen to Colbert, listen to him. So apparently this guy was on the Colbert Report, the David Keith, and Colbert? I don't even know how Colbert would go about interviewing this guy. talking about possibly using geoengineering someday. Whoa, Colbert, I think I've heard some reports from you about geoengineering a long time ago, but according to the guy you're interviewing, it doesn't even exist. In TED Talks, there's another good spot. TED Talks, you got to be able to trust TED Talks, right? You know, you got goomers like Gates coming on TED Talks talking about, well, you know, they want to drop the CO2 emissions by 80%, but I don't think that's going to work. We got to take it all the way to 100%, and we got to lower the population. I think vaccines could play an intricate role in the lowering of the population. And this guy's in the newspaper. Give me a break. Anyways, international large-scale manipulation of Earth's climate is highly controversial. Ideas include seeding the atmosphere with reflective particles, fertilizing the oceans with iron to stimulate growth of carbon-absorbing plankton, and even sending giant mirrors to orbit the Earth and reflect sunlight. Sounds crazy? Nah. Doesn't sound crazy at all. Getting rid of mother and father on a government farm sounds pretty crazy. But this sounds all normal to me so far because you know why? Because it's science. It's science. The new priests. And we shouldn't question the new priests. Why? They're scientists. And we should just believe whatever, because they care. They care about our health. They engineer your food, the scientists do, so you know your food's good. The scientists study your water, so you know your water's good. And now they want to save the planet from climate change. So, I mean, we all got to get down. And, you know, like the Muslims get on their knees and flop themselves down on the ground and moan or whatever the hell they do. Maybe we ought to be doing that every time we see a scientist. Chicago geophysicist Raymond Pierre Humbert has called solar engineering barking mad. Canadian environmentalist David Suzuki has rejected it as insane. Former U.S. Vice President Al Gore has called the ideas delusional in the extreme. Now, there's a video on the internet where some younger people, because Suzuki's running around, call himself an elder now, but David Suzuki was at some kind of a deal in a park somewhere or something. Yammering on about whatever he yammers on about, and some young people actually brought the chemtrails geoengineering to this David Suzuki's mind, and asking him why he doesn't speak out on it and that, and he run like a rabbit, but here in the paper has rejected it as insane, even though the day the kids were talking to him, they were spraying right above their frickin' heads. And Suzuki didn't want nothing to do with that question and got the hell out of there. President Al Gore calls the ideas delusional in the extreme. And anything that you've ever said, Gore, is not delusional in the extreme. I mean, this shit's in the papers, and people read this crap. And they never check a damn thing out. That's what makes me crazy. People read this crap every single day. And unfortunately, an awful lot of them believe what guys like Gore and Suzuki say. Jim Thomas, the Montreal-based nonprofit technology watchdog ETC Group, says these ideas are not just crazy, they're dangerous. Well, how many petitions, that's why I don't do petitions, by the way. How many petitions have been sent to government officials talking about chemtrails or geoengineering to make it politically correct, I suppose. And these people don't even recognize that things are being sprayed, apparently. It's just an idea. Now, my wife's ex-boyfriend from way back when, dropped into the store that she was working in. And this is probably in about 2008, 2009, maybe 2010, somewhere in there. And we've been shooting a lot of chemtrails. Apparently not, because they don't exist. It's a ludicrous idea. It's dangerous. But her ex-boyfriend is some big security guy with the Army or the Air Force here in Canada. And so he popped in the store. He was in town, and he popped into the store. And I said, well, geez, if he comes back in, I guess his family has a cottage up here or something. But I said, if he comes back in, ask him about the planes. Ask him about the planes. And so she did. And his answer, and I'd called government agencies in that time frame too, and I always got the same answer. So I thought this was a great opportunity for her to ask somebody that was fairly high up in that particular business of can't remember if it was Air Force or Army or whatever, but in it, nonetheless, the forces. And if he didn't give her the same answer I'd been getting from different government agencies, his answer to her was, what planes? Brilliant answer. Brilliant. What planes? But anyways, it's dangerous, right? It's dangerous. It's easy to understand why most climate scientists are wary. Fertilizing our oceans would almost certainly kill fish. Has there not been a lot of massive fish kills in the last few years? Thousands of fish wash up on the beach here or there. It would most certainly kill fish. Launching a sunscreen would stall plant growth. Well, a lot of people are complaining about that. Spraying sulfates in the atmosphere would damage the ozone layer, which shields us from the sun's cancer-causing ultraviolet radiation. Well, there's a good way to depopulate the planet, isn't it? Geoengineering would allow politicians to avoid reducing greenhouse gas emissions, says Thomas, by giving them a technological way out. His greatest concern is who will control the thermostat if the technology is ever deployed. So again, see, they qualify that they haven't done it yet. So they must be contrails. They must be contrails. It must have been just the atmospheric conditions of the day that we shot the films that gave us the idea that they weren't just normal contrails. So I suppose I have to apologize to the government for my stupidity. And it could also spark conflicts between countries, he says. But Thomas concedes Keith is not crazy. He is smart, innovative, and his credentials are impeccable. Undergraduate degree at the University of Toronto, a doctorate from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and we know what's going on there, don't we, folks? That's where all the real loony bin climate people are hanging out. Teaching gigs at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, the University of Calgary, and since 2011, Harvard, his hiring seen as a coup for the university. He was named Hero of the Environment in 2009 by Time magazine, and he is an admirer of Bill Gates. Not admirer, he's an advisor to Bill Gates. He was awarded a National Atmospheric Administration Fellowship and is the author of dozens of papers. His first, A Serious Look at Geoengineering, was published in 1992 and tackled stratospheric sulfur. It went largely unnoticed. In 2013, a book, A Case for Climate Engineering, detailed how the technology would work. David Keith is a very good climate scientist and very good at technical work, says Thomas. But Keith, he argues, isn't the right person to making calls about the impacts of global justice policy impacts. David is playing many roles in this topic. Keith, a tall and wiry man who smiles often and big, sure a sign of a lunatic, is sitting in his sparse office a few paces from Harvard Square. He is perched on the edge of his chair, leaning forward and talking fast. Blasts of sentences, engaging and candid. He recognized the potential for abuse of geoengineering. A rogue nation could hijack it and wreak havoc, or it could be used as an excuse to dither on cutting emissions. The problem remains that despite the international pledges of deep cuts, emissions keep rising. I don't necessarily believe we should do it. Solar geoengineering, says Keith. There are very legitimate arguments that we shouldn't. But I think fundamentally at this point, I'm an advocate for taking it seriously and doing serious research because it potentially had large benefits, and that's not crazy. Anyways, we think we'll let that ride out there for a bit. If you want to read the rest of this thing, you can put in David Keith in the Toronto Sun, or if you're in the chat, I'll just stuff that article in there and get on with it. Now, we have a lot of talk about, there's one thing I ran into last night. Now, I tell people, I don't spend much time looking at Syria. It's pretty obvious what's going on there. I never spent much time looking at Greece. It's pretty obvious what's going on there. It's a global game that's being played out. And they're grinding everybody into the ground. And they want to, one of their goals is the destruction of the nation state. And a nation, for those who don't quite know what a nation is a group of people, similar people. And they build their society on those norms. So, here in North America, and Europe in general, is basically a northern European people who, depending on the time of the year, change colors, but basically would be referred to as Caucasian or white. And that's who populated North America. And if there's Native people out there, I get it. I understand what you're thinking. And just bear with me here. I have the utmost respect for the natives. But it is what it is. We were coerced into coming over here, at least our forefathers were. And they got hoodwinked, just like you got hoodwinked to the native people. We all got hoodwinked. And but we came over here and we built these basically European countries built on Christian basis and the Bible, and that's what we were, and that's the nation. And unfortunately, they can't have their world government with nations. Okay, and that's why any idea of nationalism is like a bad spark that gets stomped out ASAP by the media. They don't want to hear nothing about nationalism. If you say nationalism, they're going to come at you with the Nazi nonsense. Okay, you hear it constantly. I've heard this for years, right? You're a nationalist? Well, hell yeah. Oh, so you're like one of those skinheads? Nope. Well, you know what? Hitler was a nationalist, and look what happened. That's what they do, right? Because it's all about internationalism. You can't have world government with a bunch of independent nations now, can you? So the nation has to be destroyed. And the multiculturalism, when they really geared that up, is part of that game. And now they're really punching it with this migration nonsense. So, I don't know what, I was looking at something last night or whatever. Maybe I was looking at a video or something. And I saw over in the sidebar some videos from Greece. And I saw the name of an outfit that I didn't recognize, and the name of that outfit was the Golden Dawn. And what the hell is that, right? So I went and looked at it, and the Golden Dawn is a national socialist party in Greece. And it's a bunch of people that have had it. They've absolutely had it. The Greece has been ground into the ground more times than you shake a stick at. And you know, the people in Greece, as I watch these videos of the, not the ones that started this, but just the normal people who have been thrown out of their homes or living on the streets of Greece, old people, younger people with no jobs, pensioners that have had their pensions just slashed through these austerity measures. A country totally decimated. Well, what they do here in North America, because that's where we live, is, you know, you have these successive governments come through and people get mad at them, so they fire them out and they bring in some new ones, and then they see, well, geez, they're doing the same thing as the last ones. And then they may go another 4 years and toss them and bring somebody else in and figure out, wait, they're doing the same thing again. I don't know how long it takes for people to understand patterns. Please learn how to understand patterns. It will help a lot. But the people in Greece finally got it. and this Golden Dawn party has now garnered 20% of the vote, or I think they have 18 or 20 members in parliament now, and they're raising absolute hell. And part of their a big part of their platform is Greece is for Greeks, and they have no use for these immigrants that are being brought in. You know, like one of the people said, you know, Greece it's a small country, about 10 million people, and they want to bring in somewhere between 1.5 and 3 million immigrants. What are you, nuts? We're starving to death here now. Ain't going to happen. So, you know, it goes back to the kind of thing, you know, by the people, for the people kind of thing. And so this group, when it first got going, this national group, they would go and take the money, I guess, for dues or sign-up fees or whatever, and then they would take that and everything they didn't absolutely have to use, they would put back into food programs and that. So they were out on the streets feeding the Greek people and that, but only the Greek people. Now, this really raised some hell with the government at play, because then they said, well, you're racist. You have to feed everybody. Well, no, we don't, because we didn't bring these other people here. You did. And the Greek people are hurting, and we're Greek, and we're looking after our own. And that's a good idea. So, you know, they would show their proof of Greekness, I guess, and then the people. So they're having problems with the immigrants, you know, robbing stuff and this and that and the other thing, and it's all about chaos. It's all about the destruction of your nation state. And there was one little old lady who, quite tiny elderly woman, who had a store in Athens for many, many years, and she'd been robbed 3 times, I think, by immigrants, and accosted twice by immigrants and that. And she didn't like this idea of this neo-right stuff at all, but finally got fed up, and she said, you know, I think the Golden Dawn gets more 911 calls than the police do, because the police don't do anything. Because the police, if you've had any, or you've even looked at any of this stuff, normally you, being from your country, will be treated much more harshly than an immigrant. So you know, it's really, it's different, but it's things have to change. Things absolutely have to change. Now, one of the founders of the Golden Dawn was down in. They opened up I think there's a one in New York City. I know there's one in Montreal, Canada, and there's one in, I think, Sydney, Australia. And basically, these are Greek people who live in these different places, and they have chapters there, not to put the Golden Dawn per se into that country, but it's just for those Greeks who live in those countries to be able to show their support for what's going on in Greece, which is a good thing. But this guy was down in Australia, and we have a very good-looking, blonde, talking head interviewer. One of the other reasons I don't have a TV, I can't stand it. You know, I can't tell if these are, you know, wannabe models or wannabe hoes, or I have no idea. I mean, what the hell do you know about news? What do you know about anything? So she's asking him these simple, canned questions about being a Hitlerite or a Nazi and all this kind of stuff. And he was very calm with her. And she says, well, one of the questions he said to him went kind of like, but you want all the immigrants out. That's correct. But that's racist. No, it's not. Well, you want white only. No, I want Greek. Okay, this is our country. Now, and she said, well, that's, she started giving him a hard time. And he said, what? But I found this very interesting because he said, well, this is what God wanted. Okay, after Babylon, he separated the people and the languages. Okay, and we had nations. And the nations traded amongst the nations, but in this international thing, this hookup with the UN, if you ain't a member state of the UN, which all the countries are now, and you don't do what the UN wants, then they set up so that nobody trades with you. Okay, so they hold that stick and carrot game over your so-called elected officials. All right? So either you play ball with us or we're going to smack you one. And my attitude was to that is good. Let's get it on. Okay, because at least here in Canada, and I know in the United States, because it's still, regardless of that it has 300, a lot of people think 310 million people is a lot of people. It's not for the size of the United States or America. I hate using that term, United States. But it is basically a vacant land. You have some cities along the edges and some along the Great Lakes. Other than that, the place is empty. And my attitude is between Canada, the people in Canada and the people in the United States, we have all the resources. We have all the capacity, we have all the engineering ability, we have all the farm ability, that if the rest of the world just fell off the planet, we would actually be living in Shangri-La. We don't need the United Nations, we don't need the International Monetary Fund, we don't need the World Bank, and we certainly don't need the United Nations headquarters sitting on American soil. I mean, that should be like a stick in the eye of every American. These guys gone. Get them gone. So I'm not going to make too much judgment on this group that is called the, what I call them, the Golden Dawn. Take a look at these guys. It's kind of like the BNP party over in Britain or something. These are basically all nationalists. They're watching their countries be overrun. They're watching their politicians not stand up to any of it, and it's time that the people said we've had enough. And I do believe that those words came from one of the founders of the United of America. If these clowns turn on you, then get them. Okay, if you don't get them, they're going to get you. If you want your country set right side up again, you all got to get a little bit on the active side. This is not about watching TV. This is reality. This is game on. Now, one other thing I want to talk about here is Uranus. And I found this rather odd and comical, but very, very relevant. I do a lot of word searches in that when I'm trying to figure something out. And I didn't put that word in. It showed up down a long list of I don't even know what the word was, a term or whatever it was I was trying to figure out. But when I put in Uranus, I'm just going to do this quick in a few minutes because this tells us a lot about our governments today and about the rainbow flags and the gay pride parades and this all-inclusive crap and stuff. It really does say a lot about it. Now, Uranus, of course, was the husband of Gaia, okay? And Gaia is the environmentalists' personification for Mother Earth. And I read some other stuff about Gaia years ago, and it turned out she was a bit of a hoe, you know? But that's beside the point. So this here is just in etymology, and the first planet discovered that was not known in ancient time, named for the god of heaven, husband of Gaia, the Earth. Yada yada yada. Let's see. So Uranus, heaven and sky. The cosmology, or Greek cosmology, the god who personifies the heavens, father of the Titans. Now Uranus did get his nuts cut off in the story, but that's another sidebar here. Anyways, the planet, this is interesting too, and I'm going to look this up maybe tonight or when I get time, because there is a big connection between King George and it was King Henry in the Vatican. I'll have to check out King George, what he was up to, King George III. Anyways, the planet was discovered and identified as such in 1781 by Sir William Herschel. It had been observed before, but mistaken for a star. In 1690, John Flamsteed cataloged it as the 34th Chiruri. Herschel proposed calling it Georgium Sidus, literally George's star, in honor of his patron, King George III of England. Yada, yada, yada. I cannot but wish to take this opportunity of expressing my sense of gratitude by giving the name of Georgium Sidus to a star which, with respect to us, first began to shine under his auspicious reign of Henry III or George III. The planet was known in English as the Georgian planet. French astronomers began calling Herschel, and ultimately astronomer Joan Baud proposed Uranus as in conformity with other planet names. However, the names didn't come into common usage until 1850. Now, Uranian, adjective with a capital first letter, pertains to the planet Uranus. Now, Uranian adjective with a lowercase u at the beginning stands for homosexual. In 1893, from the reference to Aphrodite in Plato's Symposium, Urania, heavenly, being an epitaph of Aphrodite, as born of Uranus, and was also distinguished from the vulgar Venus and commonplace lust. And this is what I find, that the entire environmental movement is we have Mother Earth, Gaia, not a creator, okay? And it just happens that Uranus, the husband of Gaia, who did get his nuts cut off, but then we come down to the homosexual aspect of it in 1893. And as a noun, that was as an adjective, and as a noun, a homosexual person. Related Uranianism is homosexuality from 1893. So you have this whole thing of astrology tied up in all of this stuff, and the Earth worship through Gaia, and we have our environment minister here in Ontario is gay. Our premier is gay. We have a lot of gays in the government. And I wish I had that right in front of me, but the quote from Yuri Bernashkov, or whatever his name is, that guy that came to Canada when he got out of the KGB or whatever, and did a brilliant video, in my estimation anyways. You can go to my blog, CanadianTruths.wordpress.com, and in the search bar just punch in Yuri, and you'll get it. But he warned specifically about never, ever allowing gays to get control of upper government positions. He's very adamant about that. So, you know, if you want to look into that a little bit deeper, you can, there's lots of information. I didn't have time today to get right into it. But there is all kinds of, you know, the full story. Here's one here. If I got 4 seconds. Okay, now does this not sound like transgender to you? Uranian is a 19th century term that referred to a person of a third sex, originally someone with a female psyche in a male body, who was sexually attracted to men and later extended to cover homosexual gender variant females and a number of other sexual types. It is believed to be an English adaptation of the German Uring, which was first published by activist Karl Heinrich in somewhere between 1825 and 1895. Okay, and this is the same period of time. If you remember, is that the idea of evolution was spawned as well. Okay, so if you're wandering around wondering what the hell's going on, you might want to look into Uranian or Uranus or Gaia, and look way back at some of this stuff, and it may answer some of your questions as far as why we're having gay pride parades and why all this transgendered crap's flying around here. And, you know, go back, always look at history. Always go back and look at history, because everything is written down somewhere. And a lot of the stuff that was written down many, 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 many years ago is brought to the forefront when they need it to push their agenda. So remember, our feet on the ground, law is 90%, or possession 90% of the law. These are our lands, and we all need to just understand that and learn to say no to all this nonsense that's coming at us from the satanic United Nations and being filtered down through our local levels into our local schools and local churches and local every other damn thing. You know, or we accept what they're shoving down our throat, because silence is consent. The Greeks are no longer silent, and I'm not Bruce Jenner for Prez. That busts me up. And understand this, people. I am not barking at anybody because they want to run around and do that. I don't get it, okay? And I don't think you got it. I think for the most part, people were in a vulnerable mental position and they were forced into it by these lunatics. So, anyways, that's the show. I don't want to I want to thank everybody, and God willing, and hope everybody's just tuned in now and then, and okay, thank you, take care, and we are out.